Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm pleased to be here. I thank God for being here. It's very great to present this work entitled An MCDM Model for Measuring the Preparedness Level of Sales Department in COVID-19 and Future Pandemics, Electrical Appliance Sector. This was authored by Iván-Darío Gómez-Villar, Arlen Borrego-Areyanes, Antonella Petrillo, and me as the presenter. This was a result of a collaboration between Universidad Costa from Colombia and University of Naples, Parthenope from Italy. This is the overview of my presentation, and we'll start with the motivations behind this study. So, Colombia is the fourth largest economy in Latin America. In fact, Colombia grew 3.3% last year. But as all we know, the COVID-19 has highly affected all the economies around the world. In fact, the turnover of multinational is down by 6.6% on average compared to the first half of 2019. That is why decision makers need to make important, fast, and effective decisions. In this regard, it is necessary to define new business models. It is necessary to create structures underpinning the new dynamics, the new business, okay? Because it becomes digital now. The main focus of this study is on the electrical appliance sector. That is why this research aims to propose a multi-criteria decision-making model, helping companies to face the coronavirus pandemic. In fact, they did to relaunch businesses with innovative tools. So we decided scanning the literature regarding this, and we found that the less digital companies as suspected are the most affected by the consequences of pandemic. In fact, this was confirmed by this study. On the other hand, the COVID-19 is changing customer shopping habits. So if a company wants to sell, it is needed to get closer to the customer. There is the case of Nike or Lincoln Swan, which has evolved the way of doing business. As this scenario is plagued by multiple factors, the MCDM techniques, the MCDM approach is highly suitable. On the other hand, we have to say that this is the first study addressing this problem. In fact, the reported literature doesn't evidence MCDM models evaluating the preparedness levels of sales department when facing markets affected by the COVID-19 waves and other pandemics. On a different tack, the combination of AHP and TOPSIS, which is proposed in this study, is not covered for this kind of purposes. So this research is novel. As an hypothesis, well, our research question is, well, how to measure the preparedness level of sales department from the electrical appliance sector when facing new COVID-19 waves and future pandemics. And within the objectives, we decided identifying the weaknesses of each company when facing this kind of pandemics. And also designing improvement strategies, because this study is not only theoretical, it's very practical, and has been applied to the companies participating in this study. So our proposed approach was a multi-criteria model comprising of 8 criteria and 29 sub-criteria based on AHP and TOPSIS methods. Regarding the methodology that we use for solving the problem, it's a 5-phase methodology. And first of all, we develop a decision-making model based on the literature reviewed, experts' opinions, and regulations. Then we decided collecting the pairwise comparisons needed for applying the AHP method. Afterwards, we implemented the AHP method to prioritize the criteria and sub-criteria. Then we used TOPSIS to calculate, to estimate the preparation level of the sales departments when facing future COVID-19 waves and pandemics. Finally, we identified the weaknesses of each company and design improvement interventions for increasing their effectiveness in the wild. Regarding the data model and analysis, we have a very complete decision-making model with 8 criteria and 29 sub-criteria. Among the criteria, we include the virtual cell by social networks, biosafety protocols,
5 minutes left,
supply chain effectiveness, creation of pandemic focus on the pandemics or products focused on this kind of scenarios. Digital advertising, and on the other hand, sub-criteria like ad footprint on social media, training biosafety protocols, inventory service level, and average lead time. All of these represented the multifactorial context of this scenario. 7 remarkable companies participated, some multinational, and are from the electrical appliance sector. Among the decision makers, we have commercial vice presidents, commercial presidents, chief executive and academicians with high expertise in MCDM. This is an example of the AHP survey we use for collecting the pairwise comparisons. Regarding the AHP applications, this is an example of the supply chain effectiveness metrics. And when seeing the ranking of criteria, we notice that the most important criterion is virtual cell by social networks, which is highly expected because of the pandemic and because of the quarantine measures. In fact, the second one is digital advertising. And when evaluating the consistency of these metrics, we noticed that all of the metrics were found to be below, in this case, 10%. So reliable decisions can be expected. This is the TOPSIS decision metrics and the ranking of companies from the electrical sector based on the preparation index. In fact, the best sales department is from the department from the company E1 with 82% of preparation. The concerning part is the rest of the companies are below 70%. So there is so much room for improvement. But we decided to look into the causes behind this preparation level. We identified the weakness points, the weak points for each company. And it's an example, creation or adoption of product focus on the pandemics is a weakness very common in the sector. That is why we decided fostering special offers and launching campaigns promoting those electrical appliances that can be useful during the quarantine measures. Regarding the limitations, this research study was limited to the Colombian scenario, which may partially explain the results. On the other hand, we didn't incorporate the interdependence evaluation because we needed to make decisions in a short time or for a short time period. So HP TOPSIS is enough. But we have to do this for the future work. On the other hand, we decided to include the financial criteria for also future work. Regarding the conclusions, the pandemic crisis has accentuated the need for all companies
2 minutes left,
the business model, okay? And in this regard, digital innovations are fundamental, okay? If a company wants to sell, it has to become digital. And on the other hand, a very complete model comprising of 8 criteria and 29 sub-criteria was proposed to measure the preparedness level of 7 companies from the electrical appliance sector when facing the COVID-19 waves, using AHP TOPSIS. In this case, the most important criterion was virtual cell by social networks. And on the other hand, E1 was the best company or the most prepared company when facing this pandemic scenario. Many thanks for your questions, for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm ready to respond.
Thank you, Miguel. That was a very interesting presentation. It seems like people all over the world are facing those issues you're talking about. If we have questions, you please unmute your microphones and you can just ask your question orally, or you can write a chat.
I have a question.
Okay.
Could you elaborate your interaction with the decision makers. I think you really achieved a good interaction with your experts. Could you just elaborate about it?
Okay.
Did you have any difficulties, or what happened? Because I think they made so many comparisons for you.
Yeah, of course. It wasn't an easy task. It was necessary to apply this or to collect the pairwise comparisons during like 2-3 sessions. Okay. But it was very important to socialize this and to socialize the importance of this, because this model supported decision making of 7 companies, and some of them are multinational. And they, based on these results, they decided implementing the improvement strategies that were decided. Of course, it's not easy to collect the pairwise comparisons when there are some professionals that are not expert in the MCDN approach, but that is why we decided to implement a survey layout that is very easy. Okay. Also taking into account the scale that we use, that is also easy for them. That is why HP is one of the most frequently used methods, because it's very simple, and maybe this kind of resistance to the use of these methods can be reduced.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have another question? Someone else? Well, I have a question. Oh,
Go ahead, Roseanne. Go ahead. Sorry.
I have a question. Not being so competent on the social networks, I think you showed a questionnaire that maybe you posted it on in your presentation. You had somewhere the questionnaire that you used. Can you show that?
Yeah, of course.
Is it possible?
I'm going to show that.
Maybe you can educate me about how to use our social networks with AHP.
This was the HP service I used.
Yes.
In this study. Yeah, it's very practical. Of course, it is necessary to socialize about the decision-making model, the objectives behind the study. But the idea is to illustrate the comparison, okay, and the different options that may be chosen, okay. And then we collect these comparisons, and for us, these comparisons represent a number regarding, or that is related to the SATI scale. So it's very easy to collect the comparisons using this survey.
So you collected these comparisons from these decision makers? Is that who answered them for you?
Yeah, of course. And it's about 10 decision makers, chief executive, some company owners, vice presidents, supply managers, and so
And
people who
how
are
did the social?
Yeah, people who are involved in the market, people who are involved in the social media part. So because the companies have evolved to the social media parts in order to address this crisis better. Something that I need to say is that one of the most frequent weaknesses is that these companies doesn't have an app or a web page to sell. So one of the main parts of the decision-making model is that each company has to speed up a little bit this process in order to sell more in the market.
I see.
How did you implement this survey? Which technology did you use to do that? Can I ask that question?
Yeah, that was my question as well. Yeah, thank you.
Which framework do you use to collect the information? SurveyMonkey, whatever electronic. How do you do that?
Okay.
Is it a private network that you built especially for that?
Well, we perform private interviews. Okay, we perform private interviews. We schedule some appointments because it's very difficult to reach this kind of people. So it was necessary to schedule some interviews with so much time in advance. One of our researchers is involved in this sector, so we had certain connections with these decision makers who were interested in applying this decision-making model. So it wasn't easy because the companies needed to make a fast but an effective decision. So, but it was needed to count the participation of the decision makers and on people who are in charge of making this important decision making processes